But I suppose back to before that, obviously growing up as a young fella, I suppose in Belmullet and obviously with your dad and stuff like that. How did you, I suppose, enjoy your younger years? I suppose down there, had you much success at club level and stuff before you kind of got involved with Mayo?
No, no, not really. Look here, I was lucky in that, like I was in and around the Mayo senior football team as a kid.
Mm.
So like I was there as in the 80s, a 7, 8 year old going to the odd training session on a Saturday morning, kicking a ball in the corner, knew all those players through that, McHale and TJ and all those fellas that way. So that was, yourself when you're a kid, that was like you're getting special access.
Absolutely.
So that was brilliant. I remember even when Liam O'Neill was manager of Mayo, Kevin's dad. Kevin used to be there now. He was a couple of years older than me, so like I knew him even back then as when we were kids. But yeah, so that was just great as a kid. So you're always in around football. Balmullet at the time, Balmullet had a good senior team in the early 80s, but like I was only born. And I think they lost the county final in 81. But by the end of the 80s, they were a solid enough intermediate team. So I used to go to all those games and just be kicking around. So it was literally every weekend. It was either going to a Mayo training or going to a Balmullet game. So it was seamless then really then when you start playing yourself because that's all you're used to. You know
Yeah.
yourself.
How much, Billy, did you pick up from? I would have been, I suppose, similar to that when Kenneth was involved,
Yeah.
down around trainings and stuff. Now, I would have obviously 15, 16, probably thought I should have been playing at that stage. But I mean, looking at these boys,
Really, really, Martin. You think? Yeah.
um, how much would you have learned from them guys? I suppose in relation to the way when you started playing ball yourself, like.
Well, I think I think it's hard to pick up anything other than when you're that young. It's different when you're saying you're 15 or 16. You
Mm,
you know an awful lot about what you are as a footballer, as a 15-year-old, and you probably knew too much about yourself as a footballer at that age. But when you're 7, 8, 9, all you want to think it's just they're your heroes that you want to say if I can get just one chance of doing this, well, I'm going to be delighted with that. So it was more for me, that was more of a kind of that's the dream. That's what I want to try and achieve, and it's
mm,
going to take a whole number of years. Whereas you're right, when you're 15 and 16, you're that below, and then that's probably why I felt that playing under 16 and minor and being in schools of excellence and all that, and you get to meet whether it be Kenneth or John Casey, fellas that were in the team at the time,
mm.
and they do a bit of coaching with you. You probably learn more about yourself as a footballer then and think, well, look at what these fellas can do. I'm probably not great on my left side or whatever. I need to work on that. And when you're that age, you probably have still a bit of time to do that.
How much influence Billy had? I suppose two questions in one. I suppose influence and did you feel? I'll ask that one first. How much influence would your dad have had? I suppose on you as a footballer when you were all the way through. I suppose.
Well, not so much. He's very easygoing about the whole thing,
Mm,
which I think was a huge benefit to me because I probably would be a person that probably would get too caught up in it and be too worried about it. Or say you're going through a bad period of form, you'd let it get to you or whatever. So I wouldn't be the quickest person to shake it off. So he was very easygoing in that regard, and there was never a case of being any pressure ever. Now, when I was playing for Mayo, and I suppose you've made it to a sense, and you're playing a game, and then he can give you pointers that say, well, look here, you should have done this, or you should do
mm.
more of that. And that was different as an adult, but I was an adult at that stage. But if you're talking about 15, 16, or even coming up to try and make a Mayo minor team, the question it might have been coming around to something like, say, well, how do you think you'll get on? Will you get close to the team or whatever? And that'd be it. And I'd answered, yeah, I should make the team, or I'll be on the bench or whatever. And that was it. So I always felt that was a huge positive in that you didn't feel that pressure. I suppose the other thing as well is that even when you're that bit younger, when you're 13, 14, or trying to make a school of excellence or an under 16 team,
Mm.
look, it was a huge benefit to me to say, well, everyone that pointed you out say, oh, that's Willie Joe's young lad. So everyone's giving me a second look. So if you play shit the first day, they'll say, oh, well, we'll give him a chance the next day. But if you play well the first day, they'll remember it. So I always found that very easy for me going to trials or anything like that. And I was lucky enough that I suppose any of the trials I went to, you were able to say, okay, go on to the next round or whatever.
And did you feel any pressure, Billy, when you got to senior level? As in, I suppose, not per se, I suppose obviously playing wise, but I mean, at the minute, Billy Joe Padden, obviously people are going to correspond with Willie Joe Padden.
Yeah, well, look, Mort, you know me well enough. We were on the same team. Like, I didn't worry too much about any of that sort of stuff. And I'd be the first one to say that, look here, Dad was a much better footballer than I was. I suppose the thing is, when I got to add, to the team, all I said was, like, I'm going to do the best job I can for the team. Look, maybe looking back now, I think it's very hard to look back on anyone's intercounty career and not have regrets to some stage. Maybe I think that maybe it would have been better for me if I was more selfish early on and said, look here, well, you know what? I'm not really best served moving around and playing all these different positions. That probably would have been better for me. But like at the time, all you're really doing, and all any of us were ever interested in doing, was doing the best job you could for the team and the teammates, and you just get on with it. And so maybe when I look back, maybe I would have preferred to play more football in what I would have considered my two best positions would have been probably, midfield or full forward. Whereas I played a lot of football wing forward, played some games half back, so but that like I don't lose sleep over it,
No. And tell me this, Billy, how, I suppose, underage, where did it start for you with Mayo, I suppose, or when did you realise, yourself that, I suppose, right, obviously I have ability here and I can make a push here for county level, Barby minor, under 21, senior or whatever. How did it start for you at minor level and moving on? I think it was 99.
Well,
I was there.
Yeah,
was
well, really,
minor.
I suppose it started for me in School of Excellence in 90. What was it? Was it 95? Maybe it was 95 or 96. I'll work back because I was minor. I was minor in 99. You were minor in 2000.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah, you were minor in 2000. I was minor in 98, 99. So I was under 16. It's 97. So it would have been 96. And you get to a stage there where they bring in the 40 best 16-year-old or 15-year-olds into the School of Excellence. And you kind of look around you there, think, look here. But I suppose when I went in there and looked around at 40, I was kind of thinking, you know what, I probably am the best 15 here. Back then to Ted Webb the following year, done 16, I was on the team, for each of the games, played well in most of them. We won it, played well in the final. So you didn't think yourself, look, I have a chance here now. If I carry this on, when I get to my year at minor, if I keep the show on the road, I'll make the team. When we went back in then for minor in 98, which I suppose I would have been a year young, I was coming off the bench in those games. So I think I came off the bench in the game we lost to Galway in the first round. And that was a really good team, like you're talking about. Ger Brady, Marty McNicholas, fellas like that. They were a year older than me. Gilly was playing, Gavin Duffy was playing. They were the same age as me, but they were on the team. So like that was disappointing, even though I was going pretty well. But I suppose I was probably a bit lighter, and I was playing corner forward for a lot of those, for coming off the bench, going in corner forward. Whereas then in 99, played all the games really wing forward or centre forward. Started the championship well, real lull in the middle, didn't play well against Cork in the semi-final, didn't really play well in the Connacht final. We lost down in the final, played okay in that game, got a couple of scores, but no one else really around us played well, and we ended up losing it, which was a bit crap. And I suppose you probably looking back on that yourself, you probably should have been on that team yourself, but I don't know, maybe your memories of why you weren't on it and mine are slightly different. You can tell me.
I wasn't Billy actually at that time. I think Trevor was around that team that time as well.
No, Trevor was on the team. You're right. Trevor was on the team we lost to Galway in 98. Trevor was on that team, wing forward. And but in 99, you were a year young, but you still were good enough to play. Did you not have a falling out with management or something?
Oh, 99 was, I spoke about this last night. Basically, I was on the compromised rules team at the time, on the 17.
Yeah.
By 3 years minor ahead of me. Now, basically, there was myself and Brian Nocton on the
Brian.
rules panel. So I came back and we were playing Galway and Gary Moore. I was marking Michael Comer.
I was there. I remember that game.
And I was chatting to him. And that little fucking Brad Henley shouted into me. He said, "Shut up to fuck you," or whatever. And I said, "Shut the fuck up, you." The kind of thing, And at that time, Billy, you see, the way minors worked, your name was in the paper for training, and you get a phone call. It wasn't like you're on a panel that started there for the whole year long. And I think after that, because Ronan Welsh, I think, did.
Yeah, I think he did.
still kept going. And I was sitting at home wondering, what's going on here? These haven't rang me, or what's the story? You know what I mean? But after I said that to Henley, I wasn't involved the rest of that year.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, that cost us. Didn't that cost us? It cost you and it cost
We
us.
probably should have beaten down Billy, I think, in the final anyway. I remember standing in the canal end actually for the final. Dillo was playing, obviously, and Gary was playing at the time as well.
Two of them, two of them were in the forward line. I was in the forward. Yeah.
Good side it was, and Coulter was good for Bloody Down the same day. And Benny Grant was very good for them as well. And we didn't get the breaks, and I think it was that All Ireland hoodoo, the same thing at minor under 21 senior.
But I think as well, we played so well. Well, I didn't personally, but the team in general played so well in the game against Cork in the semi-final that everyone was saying, and it's like at that age, it is hard when you're a minor team. Essentially, you play what do you play, 5 or 6 games over the course of the summer. You don't really know that much about yourself as a team.
No,
and then it's hard to kind of get up to that level again. Whereas you have to hand it down. Or the one thing I do remember about the goal that Benny Coulter got came from kind of a set move.
Yes.
And it kind of put them ahead. He got in behind the defence. I think he got a run on either. I think it was maybe Gavin, and he kept going. He was a phenomenal player, like all through his senior career. But as a minor, he was just spectacular, and he got the goal, and we never could peg it back.
Because I think Billy, you wouldn't have seen too many moves from minor teams.
No.
Go out and play.
No. Yeah, and you can be sure that down we're looking at our midfield, and you saw Gilly, who was fantastic at that, an all-round footballer, brilliant in the middle of the field, and Gavin was such a brilliant athlete, big, strong. He went on to play professional rugby for Ireland. So they probably said, well, we're not going to stand toe-to-toe with these guys in the middle of the field and win the battle, so we'll run them all over the field. And that was just a good example of that, to be honest.
I suppose into the seniors, Billy, then.
Well, I suppose I was probably slower getting going. I played a few league games, came off the bench in a few league games in 2001, the year we won the league. So I technically have a National League medal from that. I think I can maybe come off the bench and I'd say if I played 20 minutes in total for maybe in 3 league games. So I didn't even make the subs for the league final. But look here, I was struggling big time with the physical workload. I was down and playing UCG and probably wasn't your county training. Like we used to train out in Tourmakeedy, and it was savagery. Were you ever training out there? Were you
well, I remember Tourmakeedy. I remember going back for a bloody steak after every night.
Yeah. We used to go. The food was definitely a highlight. It was a huge highlight. It was the only thing we used. It was tough, and I suppose we used to train. So there were some days it was daft. Like some days we used to train in the morning with UCG Sigerson at 7:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. I'd have to go in then, and then go back up to Mayo in the evening and train again. At 19 years of age or whatever, you're not physically able to do that and go to college in the middle of the day. So, I'll tell you this much: by the end of the league campaign, by the time May came around, I don't think I played any good football that summer. I was absolutely wiped. Nothing left in the legs. So, I was dropped. I think at that stage, and I was glad of it, to be honest, because I only would have been taking more abuse. And I think I came back in then when Mahan came in, but I think I missed out on 2002 altogether. So I came back in 2003 in the middle of the summer, and was playing well because I was playing well for the club. Didn't play any National League that year. The club didn't play any inter-county games. Was kind of brought in for training, and then it was from 2004 that I played more regularly then.
2004, I suppose we'll go into it. I suppose what do you think, Billy? I suppose for we've never spoke, I suppose, really about it. What was your take on, obviously not winning that year, as opposed to apart from the fact, obviously, the Kerry were so much better than us on the actual day. I put it down to simply that. I don't look at, the other kind of outside stuff as in curses or any of that kind of rubbish at all. I just said that's the way it was for me, and we were very much outpowered. But if you recall, I think it was Fermanagh who nearly frightened us.
Yeah.
Semi-final, I think it was.
Yeah.
Fermanagh. What was your feeling on that?
Well, I'll say it was this way. The way I felt, I think I played all the National League that year and played pretty well. I think I played every game in the National League. Well, I think I did anyway, but somebody might correct me that. I definitely started and played well. But I didn't play any championship football. And I suppose me thinking back on that is, I always was pissed off for the simple reason that if you take that, I was playing a lot of football midfield that year, but then of course McD comes back and rightly so. He comes back in and takes number 11, which I would have gladly handed it over to him. There you go, man. And which I had no qualms with that. So I was left going back into training, which was fine, but playing midfield on the B team. And Grant, I love playing midfield. But I felt myself that I was playing so well in the B team. And me and DB were midfield on the B team.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And who was it? Was like, would have been Ronan and maybe Fergal Kelly that was midfield on the A team. And I maybe I remember this wrong now. You can tell me. But I was thinking, me and DB are playing Stormers here in all these B games, fucking controlling the game. You know, good relationship built up. So I suppose I thought I'd get a chance in one of the games, at least come off the bench or something, but never did. And as the summer was going on, I was getting kind of thicker and thicker. And then, of course, you go into an All-Ireland final. We'll come back to the other games. But going into an All-Ireland final, you know, hey, fuck, you're not going to make your fucking championship debut in a fucking All-Ireland final. But I think that was very much that case that year. Was like, it was about peaking early and peaked again that Tyrone game. And then it was a real struggle in the two Fermanagh. The Fermanagh were a good side. And in that, they were probably tactically better than us. They were a bit more defensive. They didn't take any chances on the ball. They had a bunch of these little fellas who kept the ball well, and they caught you on counterattacks pretty well, more so than maybe teams in Connacht at the time were doing. And it kind of was good enough, you know, with the two Brewsters then, it was good enough to keep them in games against us when we weren't playing well. And I think then going into the final, we weren't playing well. And the only chance we would have had in that final, I think, is if we were something we weren't capable of being, and if that was a case where, because we weren't playing well, if it was a case where we turned it into like a fist fight, and that's something we never did. And so I think you're right. I think I'd agree with you there that, you know, we just weren't in good enough form. You know,
do you think
I see somebody's there saying, am I saying Mahan was tactically poor? I don't know was that the case. Look here, in terms of what John brought to the table, is that like, geez, I remember some of those days in 04. I remember one day in 04 where I remember this it's all coming back to me. It's all coming back to me. But in 04, I was living up in Belfast. I was going to college or whatever. So I was coming home for the summer after the exams. And I played the whole National League midfield and not been at any of the during the week training sessions. I was just training myself up in Belfast, trained with a club up there, did a bit of training myself. But I was going grand. I was fit in the thing. But I think maybe the last round of the league, one of the last round of the league, we got a bit of a trimming or hiding off somebody. And of course, Mahan comes in, yeah, we'll see how fit you are now, Bleak Forest Park. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is going to be fucking horrendous. But and Mahan, because he hadn't seen me training all year, was like on my case before we even started. But for some divine reason, I must have drank about 10 espressos going down the road in the car. I was that wired on coffee that I actually got rounded in the top 10 or 11, nothing spectacular, but respectable. So that kind of bought me a bit of time. And I suppose that was Mahan's great strength, I think, was that he, to play inter-county football, you have to be able to just suck it up at times and tough it out.
Yeah.
And he, it was a sink or swim mentality with him. And it was good for me at that stage, at that age I was, because I needed that. So he kind of, you say, it's sink or swim here, go and do it. And so I think that's a positive side to it. But getting back on the tactical thing, many of the teams in 03 or 04 weren't doing anything fucking different really tactically. So you can't say Mahan was way behind the rest of them. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Fermanagh probably were one of the most tactically astute teams at the time. And like if you look back, what I always heard at the time on my recollection, and maybe 06 was different, that like Kerry wanted to attack us. And it was a good tactic, was that we didn't have the biggest full back line, in the air. And they had good players in there, Johnny Crowley, the Gooch, who were good in the air. And they played a lot of long balls in there. And it's probably, their whole thinking was that, well, if you look at Conor Mortimer is playing corner forward on the outside, Conor likes the ball played in out in front of him, and he's going to win that race out because he's very fast. So even the Mayo defenders weren't used to that sort of ball coming in and training because they were used to marking you.
Yeah.
So they got the edge on us in that regard. But look here, they were a fantastic team. They're probably going to beat us anyway that day because they just were the better team. I sometimes, obviously for two reasons, I think more of 06 because I was playing, because you always think more when you're playing than when you're sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
So that's fresher in my mind,
What Billy? Now I suppose, do you think that if that was in today's game, that you had this kind of put everyone behind the ball, and try and counter attack and stuff. Do you think it would have made a difference in either of those All Irelands?
Oh, I think so. I think if we were bringing something new to the table, like against Kerry at that stage, we probably needed to protect our full back line. So we probably needed to have a couple of bodies back there. We probably needed maybe to only play two in the full forward line, maybe an extra midfielder in there. Do something different. But as I said, not many teams were doing a whole lot of different things that area. Look. Oh, maybe you can look at what Armagh and Tyrone were doing. But Tyrone were doing a bit of this. They brought back, and maybe each of those teams maybe brought back one body. Like Armagh had like one of the McEntees maybe lined out. He'd come back deep. Similarly, Gavin Devon, when the 3 All Ireland was playing like as a centre back, he had help in there and then around him. So they probably, it was an extra body. It wasn't as sophisticated as what you see football now, or even what Donegal brought to it in 11 and 12.
Like, I mean, even I was just thinking there, as the only talking to myself around about it. Remember, we were over in the training camps. I think it was over in Browns or whatever. We had Mahan McHale and Golden as our, I suppose.
How much of this do you want to go into now?
But I mean, I suppose it's touching on how physical, the trainings and stuff were, and it goes back to what you were saying there about the reason I like Mahan and got on very well with him. It was kind of like when you're in work and you're doing your job well, and your boss in odd time will say, "Well done," or whatever it may be, but you're being rewarded for what you're doing. And in fairness to Mahan, similar to obviously you train away in Belfast, because I would have known it down here. If I train my whole off here and do well in games or whatever, as in them trial games, that's why I was surprised. And I think myself and Trevor talked about it prior to the All Ireland, because obviously in the A versus Bs, it's all well, generally the Bs are better than the As.
Yeah.
Yes, the A's play the fucking week after.
Yeah.
No sense to it, and you could gauge that it's kind of irrelevant, because it happened to me later on in my career with I don't know, I think it was Horn actually. The A versus B games were irrelevant. What I was doing, 10 or 11 points.
Yeah.
Mark Higgins, and then you get, Zippy wasn't really putting it all in, or whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying? And that was the thing. But I suppose going back to the management team we had then, I suppose compared to 6 with obviously Mickey.
Yeah.
What did you think of John Morrison, I suppose, in that regard? I thought he was, and Mickey, I thought they worked well together, I thought.
Oh yeah, look here. I've only one regret really about the 06 season at all, and we'll come to that. But just on the training point of view, we came, and I remember talking to David Heaney at the time about this. You came away from John, and I said we've been positive about Mahan here. You came away from with Mahan, whereas you felt if you didn't train, if you didn't finish the training session, even if you're hurt, you felt you had to. I remember playing league games with flipping injuries, with the flipping tore ligaments in the ankle, and you just had to play them. And Mahan fostered that sort of thing. I remember telling me once we were playing Loughford, and I think I played a Sigerson final on the Monday maybe, and we lost to Sligo T, a bunch of Mayo lads playing, and my ankle was in shreds playing the Sigerson final, never mind. And I said, "Here, John, I need to get sacked, right?" He says, "Hey, if you don't play, you're playing against Longford. Your name to start. If you don't play, who's saying what's going to happen to you? As if you're going to be chucked off the panel." So I'm there, oh, for fuck's sake. So you end up, you just, and you bull it on. I remember I was looking at that game, 3 balls, first 20 minutes, dropped into my hands, out like around 20 yards out, and just clipped them over the bar. And then I was incredible, and we ended up winning the game handy enough. So I was able to take the rest of the game handy enough. So I was lucky enough. But the point I'm making is, you went from that sort of mentality where you couldn't take a minute off because he'd be breathing down your neck saying, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that." Yeah. Whereas you'd go into flipping Warren and Morrison, and Mickey come over to you and he'd say, "Jesus, Billy Joe, you look tired today." And I said, not too bad. Like, club game at the weekend, we've gone, travelled up to Dublin. I said, "You're not training tonight." And I said, "I know, I'm grand. He said, "See, I'd have come all the way down from wherever I was, Kildare, or I was working at the time." And he says, no, you go and do a bit of rehab there, do 20 minutes, stretch out, and go in and get a bit of treatment. I says, "No, I'm grand. He says, no, you're not training." So you're not training. But what it meant was it was totally productive, because the next night you came out from training, you were there like thinking, "Oh, Jesus, I have to flip and front up here and bust a gut." And you did your next 3 or 4 nights training. You were flying around the place because you wanted to just give them a bit of payback for showing you such, I suppose, concern really as much as anything else. And then
I
when you
see
when
one
you
of the
get
boys there. Well,
yeah, and then when you see well, we'll answer that in a minute. We'll see just on the train sessions. And okay, so Morrison, he had a huge impact, and it was new to us. It was definitely new to me. You maybe say different.
mm,
When you go into the training session, you look up on the notice board, and there is your training session. There in front of you. You look down and it says, that's exactly what you want to do, and it was going to take you 65, 68, 72 minutes. And you went up and you bounced from drill to drill, from exercise to exercise. The more you got into it, the more you knew what was coming. There was always a slight variation. You did some similar stuff, but it was, in
yeah,
terms of the ball work you're doing, we'd come across before. But I suppose before we move on, and that is the one regret I have about that tenure is that All Ireland final against Kerry. We were ready to play a game of football, but we weren't ready to front up physically, and that's my only
no,
regret, and that's the only criticism I can have. And that's not something that should be totally laid on the management. That was all of us. As players, we could
yeah,
have, I suppose, communicated that among ourselves and said, look here, let's win the war first, because they blew us out in the first 50 minutes in terms of just being physically there. And that's the biggest regret I have in my whole football career. So if you want to talk about the 2006, I always laugh about the 2006. You probably knew about it. You were one of the coolers, Mort. No one told me jack shit. Uh, so I'm there running across the field, fucking going in for the picture. You jump across the thing looking and then expecting everyone to turn right and go up to the hill. Then you see DB heading the other way. And then the noise, the one thing I do remember is the noise of the Dubs.
oh yeah,
Once they realised we were going, I've never witnessed a noise like that. You talk about even later in that game when Mayo were winning it with the key scores, or any other game in Croke Park,
mm,
82,000, there was nothing like that noise before the game. And this, all I was thinking about was that stage was here. Just stay away from fucking Wheelo, a few of these lads, because if a row is breaking out, I'm not having Wheelo beating on me in the middle of Croke Park in front of 82,000.
it was just touch before that, Billy. I've never asked you this question actually. It's only someone asked it there in the Oak. Obviously, when I got that free against Galway in '06,
Mm-hmm.
you
I
won
won
it.
that free, yeah.
Yeah,
But it was a fucking dive in the corner. Louis Suarez would have been fucking proud of it.
yeah. I always meant to ask you that. What did you mean to pull the free, or was it because it looked like his arm was over your shoulder?
No, look, man, I was going nowhere. You remember that you had to kick that from the 13, or was it? It was there, but
Yeah.
there. You know where the old tunnel was in O'Kyle Park? There was a
Mm,
bouncing ball going in there. A couple of minutes left. Like, we were level at that stage, so we
mm,
weren't. It wasn't a case of where we were point down. If I had let the ball run out over the sideline for a sideline ball, it was no loss to us really. We were
no.
able to defend that situation.
Yeah.
The defender, I can't even remember who it was, wouldn't have been able to pick it up and
Yeah.
go on and counter attack the other field. So I said to myself, I'm gonna let him for contact. And when there's contact, I'm going
Mhm.
over. I'm going over and seeing what's happening here. And he did put his shoulder on me, and it did look like a push in the back, but I knew it was coming, and I'm saying, I'm getting over here. So I do remember me and you had a good fucking laugh about that over a few bottles of beer after that one. But hey,
No,
you did the hard part. You nailed the free.
practice, man. And it's funny because I was only down there the night before actually taking free. So you know me from obviously training down there
Mm.
all the time. There's never kicking them from 14 yards in front of the goal. It's corner flags or sidelines or some jazz like that. We're putting the ball over the bar.
Yeah.
Um, and were you disappointed, Billy, when I suppose the decision to get rid of the two boys came and bring in Jono? Or did you
Yeah.
think it was a good move? I actually thought my mindset at that time, I was very disappointed for them because
Yeah. Yeah.
post All Ireland final, I
Yeah.
said, I went into, you went to the little bar with the two teams after the game in the
Yeah.
whole stand or whatever. I seen Mickey Moore and John Morrison were talking with James Waldron.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
rumor was going at that stage.
Yeah.
So I just said, I went over and I said, here, James, just give them boys another year, well deserved.
Yeah.
And, yeah, no bother, the usual old snide out of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday they were gone, and my first inkling to that was, right, I'll learn to win a manager. This is all we need effectively.
Mm.
We've been in our Ireland finals. And obviously it didn't work out like that. But what was your initial thoughts when this decision came and the boys were gone?
Well, look here. I think that anything, and I think you were saying it as well. None of this was a reflection on Jono because, like, I'd never worked with him. Like at that stage, what he'd done at Galway was huge. What he'd done with Mayo before was was massive. Um,
Herself is online there looking at you.
yeah, I'm waiting back. Uh, so it wasn't that, but you're right. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that they deserved another year. Not only that, we had made huge strides, I'd felt, in that year, just in
Mm.
terms of our football, in terms of being capable of playing that last 20 minutes of the, because we played well the last 20 minutes of the kind of final. We went and won that game. We hadn't played well to that point in the game, and it was a tough game. We played well, obviously, for sections of that Dublin game. Brilliant start, brilliant finish.
Yeah.